はい、それでは、
We now would like to start the joint press conference between IRRS Mission Team and Nuclear Regulation Authority. We are providing simultaneous translation and we are broadcasting on real time for both languages. Let me introduce today's participants. Mr. Petteri Tippana, Director General of Radiation and Nuclear Safety Authority of Finland and IRRS Mission Leader, and Ms. Karine Elviv, IAEA Deputy Director General for Nuclear Safety and Security, Mr. Shinsuke Yamanaka, Chairman of the Nuclear Regulation Authority, Mr. Toshiyuki Koganeya, Deputy Commissioner for Nuclear Material and Radiation, Nuclear Regulation Authority Secretariat. I will explain the proceedings for today. First, we will hear opening remarks from 3PLUS IRRS leader, Mr. Tippana, IAEA Deputy Director General, Ms. Elviv, and Chairman Yamanaka of NRA. There are going to be the speech at the outset, and there will be going to be question and answer from Mr. Tippana. Please go ahead, being the leader of the IRRS team.
Thank you. Ohayo gozaimasu. It's a great pleasure to be here and tell you about the outcomes of the 2 weeks intensive discussions, observations, and work. The team has finished its work today, and the initial report has been provided to the NRA. And I would like to maybe highlight here that the mission has been very effective. It's strongly because of the NRA's excellent self-assessment and preparations and also the openness and effective dialogue that we have had during the 2 weeks with our counterparts, discussing all the items and how they work. They really have opened up through the discussions and the documentation the way they work, and we have been able to conduct a really effective and efficient mission comparing the activities of the NRA and Japan against the IAEA safety standards. And I think we can clearly say that there is a comprehensive and robust regulatory framework in Japan. And the other thing I want to highlight here is the dedication and commitment to nuclear and radiation safety within the NRA through the senior management to the expert level. That was very evident through the discussions. Further, I would like to highlight that it's NRA is one of the most independent and transparent, if not the most independent and transparent regulator I have seen. Excuse me. The mission, I think NRA has all the elements in their portfolio that is needed for a regulator to regulate all the areas. It's clear that when a team of experts of 23 high-level experts come to a country, they will identify some areas where improvements are needed. And maybe to highlight on a general level, the main areas that we think that NRA can still enhance its activities has to do with effectiveness, being more risk-informed in their regulatory activities. Now they do everything very precisely, and we think that, and that applies to Finland and many other countries as well, that the regulator could be more focused on most risk-significant areas, put the resources there rather than putting the same resources on less risk-significant areas. The other area is about human capital. They are very well resourced for the time being, but the challenge is in the future and ensuring that there is access to technical expertise also in the future. So we provided a finding to ensure that the long-term human resource strategy is in place. Elements are there, it just has to be integrated. And the other part of this ensuring the human capital is to make sure that NRA is an attractive organization for future talents. And this is related to some of the maybe the restrictions and limitations NRA has put in place to ensure independence, that we want the government maybe to take a look on that, to make it more, to ensure staff mobility and flexibility in recruitment. This should ensure, together with the human resource strategic plan, that the access to expertise is there also in the long term. Third area has to do with effective interactions with all stakeholders. We had a discussion on communication with the stakeholders. NRA is exercising a very transparent and effective communications. We suggested that there might be tools to complement that exemplary transparency and openness with other formats to ensure that all the in-depth technical details can be discussed with authorized parties in an effective and efficient manner. Then there were several other areas where we highlighted some documentation gaps and such like. These are very typical in every mission, but I think these were the main elements that I would like to highlight here and ready for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Ms. Helvu of IAEA, Deputy Secretary General, please. Microphone, please.
The IAEA is developing safety standards as of the major outcomes. Safety standards are a consensus on the best practices in terms of safety and security worldwide. So the IRRS mission is one of the peer reviews which is proposed by the IAEA to strengthen and reinforce the regulatory framework in different countries. So the review offers expert advice on applying the agency safety standards, which also support countries in building and continuously improving a robust safety infrastructure. I should say that the IRRS is among the most successful peer-reviewed services, and it's recognized internationally as a key mechanism for enhancing nuclear and radiation safety worldwide and strengthening national regulatory infrastructure. It's a way to review all the domain, all the activities of a regulator in terms of nuclear regulatory framework. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the IRRS mission, which was launched in 2006. And the mission here in Japan is the 157th conducted to date. I just want to underline that by requesting an IRRS mission, member states demonstrate openness, transparency, and strong commitment for safety, demonstrating their readiness to have their national infrastructure independently reviewed for improvement. Host countries, in turn, strengthen global nuclear and radiation safety by sharing good practices and lessons learned with other member states. So it's a win-win exercise, both for the host country and for all the international experts that have the opportunity to contribute to the review and more generally to the global safety worldwide, as the good practice are taken into account in further publication of the agency. After the 2011 Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident, Japan implemented major reform, and these measures have created, as it was underlined during this IRRS mission, a very strong foundation for effective regulation and continuous safety improvement across all nuclear activities. So I would like to underline the robust commitment of Japan to continuously improve safety. It's really commendable for the past year and the coming years. So in 2 or 4 years, we will have, if the government of Japan requires so, a follow-up mission to see how all the recommendations, suggestions that have been provided by the IRRS team are considered and further improvements that has been made. Thank you.
I forgot to mention Thank you. I forgot to mention one important thing, but it was mentioned by the DDG review just now in her speech. We also try to find good practices and good performances, and we did. There is one very exemplary practice in Japan, and it has to do with emergency preparedness and response exercises. So the NRA evaluates all the exercises that has taken place annually, and then at the end they conduct a joint review meeting that involves all operators in the joint meeting, and it's done in a public domain. So this enables joint sharing and learning, and this is something that we don't have in many countries, and we think that this is a global example for a good practice.
Thank you very much, Chairman Yamanaka, please. Yes, today the IRRS mission has concluded. First of all, Mr. Tipana, team leader of the team, and all the experts, thank you very much for your hard work in the last 2 weeks. Looking back, the East Great Japan earthquake and Fukushima Daiichi NPS accident, it's been 15 years. We are reaching a milestone. And at this timing, including follow-up mission, we have completed the 3rd IRRS mission, and this is very significant for our regulatory system in Japan. On the first day of the mission, I was interviewed by Mr. Tipana in person. Then I explained the origin of the NRA, which is lesson learned and some things we had to redress on Fukushima Daiichi NPS, and I said that we have never forget that instead. We'd like to maintain independence and transparency with diligence. That is what we are confident in executing. While at the same time, this time, as my own resolve, transparent independence is the word I wanted to highlight. That is, the true strength of the organization is not just based on the systematic arrangement in the organization, but every one of the employees and staff members need to have the autonomy and independence to work with ownership and share the information permeated across the organization. And inspection and review processes, not just the technical work that are visible to the eyes, but every one of the systems, the functions of the organizations are to be fulfilled by the employees. And all the employees and staff members need to fulfill their tasks with commitment and diligence. And that stance should be apparent to every one of the citizens of Japan. And that's who we would like to be. That's the organization that we'd like to become. That is what I'd like to achieve through the vision of the transparent independence. That's what I talked with Mr. Tipana. And in the last 2 weeks, the challenges and the points should have been clarified. And with regard to the recommendations, suggestions we have received as a result of the mission, this is a very important guidance and prescription for us to revisit what we do and to make further improvement. It's been 15 years since then, but our mission, my mission, will never end. So the challenges or comments made, we would like to address every one of these things and make further improvement so that we can be trustable organization, regulatory body that we can be proud of to the world. That is the commitment I'd like to make. Thank you very much. Now we'd like to open the floor for Q&A. If you have any questions, please state your name and affiliation and who you'd like to ask question to. So, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. Ida-san, please.
Nikkei, Ida, great to talk to you. And I would like to ask 3 questions to Mr. Tippana. First question is, well, the executive summary of this mission states that continuous improvement of effectiveness of regulation, particularly for the approval process, need to be enhanced for its effectiveness. Through this mission, what particular part would actually is the gap that effectiveness could be improved in approval process of the licenses? Where do you see the challenge? If you could answer, please.
This is a challenge of applying graded approach in a appropriate manner. The different types of authorizations have different, I would say, safety significance, and the effort that should be put should be based on the safety significance. In a general terms, one of the discussion topics we had with NRA on licensing process was to enable earlier engagement in the licensing process. So, for instance, external events, natural external events, they take a lot of time to review and ensure that they are properly addressed. This one example might NRA and the Japan might benefit is if such assessments could be done in an earlier phase of the licensing process and not in the same step at the plant as the plant design is being reviewed and authorized. That's one example. But in general, applying graded approach based on the safety significance of an authorization case is the generic recommendation, if you will, to NRA.
Thank
you very much. And second question, partly related to the first one. Well, nuclear safety review, particularly with regard to the natural disaster, Chubu Power Electric Company, the Hamaoka power plant in Shizuoka Prefecture, where the data it was supposed to submit to NRA was manipulated, and therefore, and then NRA failed to pinpoint to the manipulation of the data back then. And think about the licensing approval process of nuclear power plant. What part that needs to be improved going forward?
We know about this case with the Hamaoka and the falsified information in that case, but the review team did not specifically address acute regulatory activities. We want to be clear that we do not intervene in an ongoing process. We should first and foremost see the regulatory activities on a more strategic and process-oriented level, and that's what we did. And that's the focus of the IRRS missions. And we want to highlight the responsibility of the regulator. Everything is national responsibility, and the missions like IRRS should not intervene and take away the national responsibility on nuclear safety.
Thank you very much. A third question is, in regard to securing the human resources, the long-term strategy on human resource and talent development is really important, as you mentioned earlier. And it is not just NRA, but Japan on the whole would have a grave challenge of securing the talent. Now, long-term strategy on human resources, what is the desirable strategy and what action need to be taken? So I'd like to ask Mr. Chipana's opinion on this area.
The question, indeed, it's a national level challenge, and during the mission we interviewed not only the NRA but also relevant ministries like MEXT and METI, also the AEC, the Atomic Energy Commission. And this was part of the interviews we had. How do you ensure that Japan has the necessary competencies in the long run? And we heard that there is a joint effort ongoing between the ministries and AEC with the universities to start developing a national strategy for human resources. This is now being worked on, and my understanding was that during this year, the plan on how to address national competence potential gaps and how to fill those gaps, the plan should be finalized this year. This was actually identified as a good performance for Japan, so that the development is ongoing and the plan should be available soon.
はい、他いかがでしょうか。はい。
Any other questions? Ogawa-san from Asahi Shimbun.
The press conference today. I'm Ogawa, a news reporter for the Asahi Shimbun. I pose questions in Japanese.
I think this question relates to the previous question. So, as you've conducted interviews with the related ministries and agencies, at the present and going forward, the talent shortage would be expected in which areas of the nuclear industry? Have you identified specific industry areas in the nuclear sector that you expect the shortage of talent or workers at present or going forward?
I'm not sure we identified specific areas. I think it's general. You need to have the people who have the core, really the core of nuclear safety and nuclear energy. But then you need many other. You need electricians, you need civil engineers, you need instrumentation and control expertise. So it should be a holistic review. What type of needs country has in order to make sure that the needs with the existing MPPs, waste management, disposal, reprocessing, whatever there is in the future. So it's a whole different variety of different types of expertise. And to answer to your questions, we did not specify any or identify any specific areas.
わかりました。
Understood. Thank you very much. So, at the moment, from a global perspective, I think some say that there's nuclear renaissance requiring so many new talent in the nuclear sector at the moment worldwide. And for example, are there any cases outside Japan that you can apply to Japan? What's going on outside Japan that can be applied to Japan?
Understood your question. Can you maybe repeat or elaborate on what do you want to ask? What was the question? Oh, if you can repeat.
もう一度質問お願いします。
So, in terms of talent development, to secure talent, if there are any initiatives or plans that Japan can conduct based on the reference from what's conducted in other countries.
I will certainly take these messages from Japan, what they are doing on national level to Finland, because we will face similar things. And I'm glad to report in Finland that in Japan, the ministries are conducting a joint effort on ensuring national competencies. I don't see this happening in Finland, whereas in Sweden, they have conducted a very thorough national competence assessment, and they are creating a national strategy. So yes, there are examples. Countries are in different phases, and this is a very good area to share experience and notes.
Another question, thank you. So, nuclear fuel cycle facility has been visited during this mission. And in Japan, Rokkasho reprocessing facility would be restarted. And in this nuclear fuel cycle, are there any activities required for Japan, or have you identified any challenges, issues in Japan with regard to nuclear fuel cycle?
Visit was to observe an inspection conducted by the NRA staff, not so much to, and not at all to review the status of the facility itself. I think the findings on the fuel cycle facilities in general are fairly aligned with the overall findings with applying graded approach on the different regulatory processes, whether it has to do with inspections or authorizations. So that applies throughout the facilities, also fuel cycle facilities. But nothing that more specific, I would say, on fuel cycle facilities.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. The question to Chairman Yamanaka. We are going to switch the microphone. One moment, please. I'd like to ask a question to Chairperson Yamanaka. Securing talent. There's some recommendation made on the talent development, securing talent. But in Japan, there's no return rule. There's some constraint in terms of talent. So no return rule and how you can secure the talent in this sector, how you can strike the right balance between these. I'd appreciate your view, Chairman Yamanaka. First of all, the no return rule. This will relate to the personnel moving from the promoting side to the regulator side, and there's no return. That is what is specified by this no return rule. And because TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi NPS accident is the context of this, the promoting side and the regulator needs to be clearly separated. That is what we need to promote. That is the context of this rule. It's not that we will change this rule in any near future, trying to work on securing talent. That is not what we plan to do. Rather, we'd like to identify a totally different path. That is how we can envision the future state of securing good talent. We'd like to showcase that to the young generation of the citizens so that the regulator can secure a good talent going forward. And that's what we are trying to work on at the moment. And one of the examples is that human talent development program that the regulator conducts, and the staff members of the regulator will be teaching in the program so that they can interact with younger generation. So bilateral exchange program is what's in progress at the moment on that front. I think this makes a good example with regard to how we can secure talent. And as a good performance, the government engaged in securing talent, quality talent for the nuclear sector. That is regarded as a good performance in the mission. But as we say all the time, to develop talent, there's no, difference in terms of the promoter or regulator. In terms of talent development, all can work together to develop good talent going forward. And we have started some consideration on that point. And that results would be more apparent going forward. Thank you very much. And last question to DDG Echview. The third point in the executive summary, the documentation of the management system should be further enforced and enhanced. Could you give us more details about what we need to enhance here, the management system and the documentation?
Is providing some safety standards in knowledge management, in management system, but I would like to give the floor to Petteri Tipana because he is the one leading the IRRS mission, so could give them more explanation. Thank you.
Yes, management system in any organization is a significant document. It provides the instructions, rules, how the organization conducts its daily activities. And based on our review, we find areas where the NRA operates in a proper manner, but it's not documented in the management system. So these are typical gaps that we identified. So it's about clarity, about consistency, and maybe also user friendliness of the management system. And these are very typical to missions like this. And in a big organization, the management system is extensive document.
曖昧さっていうのは日本の
So, vagueness and ambiguity sometimes regarded as merit in Japanese culture, but I think it's understandable. Clarity is important in nuclear regulation. But could you give us more details? What are the challenges in the regulation due to the lack of clarity of documentation? Are there any specific challenges for Japan from that point of view?
On the regulations, it's about their internal guidance documents, how they operate their daily activities, different processes they have in place, and whether it gives adequately clear guidance to staff to do their daily activities.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
はい、共同通信。
From Kyoto, Hashimoto-san. Kashimura of Kyoto, good to meet you. Now, I'd like to ask a question to Mr. Chipana. And one of the questions from Asahi is regarding the human resource no return rule. And in relation to that, well, the material that is given today, looking at this one, the multi-year human resource ban and the mobility and the flexibility of the staff members are mentioned. And on that point, in the future, for instance, at NRA, the human resource exchanges with the ministries which are promoting the nuclear power, or the human resource exchange with the licensees, is that something that you are suggesting?
We have a recommendation or suggestion on this area for Japan, NRA, and the government to think about this no-return rule and maybe some other limitations, constraints that are in place that may affect NRA to have access on the talents. We know that there are ways in different countries how to manage such turnover between the organizations, between the regulator and the promoting side in a proper manner, with cooling periods or such like. So yes, this was discussed, and a finding was put on the report, and it's for the NRA and Japan to think whether they want to think about this no return rules and some other limitations in this regard.
Thank you very much. And the change of the subject a little bit. Now, NRA has submitted the advanced reference material, and one of the challenges in organization is that they how to pass on the experiences of the Fukushima nuclear power plant to the next generation. It's been 15 years since the accident itself, and staff members who directly get involved in 15 years old is now reducing. I know that NRA is working to address this constraint. And how do you evaluate their efforts at this point? Are there any impressions that you have remembered from this mission?
We have reviewed the ARM, which has been very thorough documentation, and there is also the third mid-term plan, which highlights this particular topic that you have raised, how to pass the experience from the accident and relevant knowledge to the next generations of staff. So it has been addressed and fully recognized also by the team. One thing that is typically discussed in missions like this is staff training, qualification, education programs. And this did not come up during this mission, which indicates that it's well done. And I was wondering that to be discussed that more, because I know that it's very thorough, and so I think we can trust on the system, on knowledge management here at the NRA, that it will address this issue of passing the knowledge and the expertise, and particularly since it's also raised in this very strategic high-level document on the third midterm plan.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask one question to Chairman Yamanaka. There's no return rule. Because of that, on the whole, through the IRRS review mission this time, what is your take on the current assessment by the peer review? Are there any new notice or learning through this review session? Well, there are some 3 areas of improvement needed. And the first is better clarity in regard to the termination time of this decommissioning, and or the emergency situation, and all this process in terms of the licensing and so forth will have to review it, and we recognize such area, and we are working to make improvements. And therefore, I believe that review member and our understanding was completely harmonized. And in regard to human resource development and also long-term strategy building for human resource will have to be put in place. And on that point, well, number of headcounts in nuclear human resources declining, and particularly those who get involved in regulation, we need to raise the talents, and also we need some internal training for growing and developing the human talents. There has to be more improvement, and we were about to put out the long-term plan and strategy, and that's actually exactly the direction matching between IRRS review and our side. And in regard to the third recommendation, in regard to document management to be improved and going forward, in fact, Japanese are not really good on documenting anything as long as the process is working without any constraints, and we presume that that is okay. But problem is that even if we are satisfied, and yet is it going to be satisfying in the future? Are there any needs to revise if something changed? And all these processes would need to be put in documentation. And therefore, something that we've noticed once again, so we need to document in great detail, and such a document need to be maintained appropriately. Others are something that we get aware once again. I'd like to ask another question to Mr. Yamanaka. Perhaps it's the same question. What do you think of the new no return rule? And perhaps from the capacity of chairperson of the NRC and NRA, that there needs to be some revision to be made. But you mentioned that there's no imminent change in that rule. What do you think? Well, how do we exchange human resources from the nuclear promotion side versus us, and licensee versus licensor, where there are complicated issues? And this particular point was raised in the previous follow-up meeting of IRRS review. And NRA don't believe that we've gained a sufficient level of trust from the public at this moment. Therefore, it is really difficult to have human resource flexibility between the promoter side or the licensee side. We do not intend to do so right away. We need to solidify the trust from the general public. Whether that is strong enough or not will be closely reviewed. And once we have a very good feeling about establishing the trust, and we will start thinking about exchanging the human resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abe-san from Denki Shimbun. Electricity and energy power is our expertise at Denki Shimbun and News Daily in Japan. I'd like to ask you, Dipana-san, 2 questions. The NRA has mentioned activities toward the next generation reactors in ARM. So in this mission, are there any point or review made during this mission? So are there any review made about the new generation reactor, which was mentioned in the ARM? So I was wondering whether there are any comments or review made in this mission.
Not explicitly on ARM's advanced reactors, but of course the findings that we have on human capital knowledge expertise do apply to ARMs as well. It requires new competencies that needs to be developed and also trained and be in the organization if new advanced reactors will be licensed. And the other part is about the licensing process, as we spoke. This might be something that needs or should be considered in the licensing process, how the potential ARMs should and could be licensed in a risk-informed manner.
Thank you very much. Another question, if I may. So, which is not directly related to the mission this time, but in the previous follow-up mission, there was a comment that the interaction with the industry is not very sufficient, pointed out in the previous mission. So, Mr. Tipana, how do you see this time? And during this mission, was there any discussion you made or comments on this point, the interaction with the industry?
First of all, these missions are all individual missions, and this is again a initial mission. So we did not look that much on what has happened in the original mission in 2016 and the follow-up 2020. We do appreciate that they have been conducted. And then on your question about the interactions with NRA and the authorized parties, yes, it was discussed between the commissioners and our team, and also we had discussions with all other relevant stakeholders that we met, and I think I indicated in my opening that we did raise a suggestion on the topic to think about the effectiveness of the interactions with authorized parties, appreciating and highlighting the importance of transparency and openness and trust to the public. But maybe whether the meeting, for instance, the meeting formats that are being used, whether they enable frank and open discussions on in-depth technical issues. That was a suggestion that we gave to NRA for consideration. So yes, it was discussed also in this mission.
Thank you very much. At the NRA, dialogue and interaction and increasing communications, I think the NRA has explained that you'll be doing so. Are there any additional suggestions or the proposal that the NRA can further conduct in terms of the communication interaction? Are there any additional?
We had in addition to all the areas that we reviewed against the IAEA standards, we also had a policy discussion on effective communications between the regulator and authorized parties or stakeholders in general. It's not part of the review itself, but it's a possibility for the team members and the NRA to express the challenges and plans on how better or how we in general communicate with our stakeholders. So we had a 1-hour policy discussion on the topic, during which maybe 5 members of the team provided their insights on how they conduct different types of communications with stakeholders, and then NRA can reflect those in their own communication plans and strategies and development. I think there was a suggestion on this topic to develop a more holistic strategy on the communication means, because like the human resources elements are there, NRA might benefit to have a more strategic plan on their communications, and I think it's also addressed in the 3rd midterm plan as well.
Understood. Thank you very much.
はい、他いかがでしょうか。
Any other question? Kyoto Uemura-san. I am Uemura of Kyoto. I have a question to Mr. Tippana. Now, related to the Fukushima nuclear power plant accident, that I'd like to ask. This year marks 15 years since the accident, and Chairman Yamanaka is determined to start an activities aiming for the 10 years into the future from now. And primarily, TEPCO itself is going to do decommissioning of the plan gradually. But from NRA point of view, for the decommissioning of TEPCO, what role would be required on the part of NRA?
The Fukushima Daiichi situation, decontamination, decommissioning was not part of the scope of the mission explicitly. But of course, within the reviewed areas, decontamination is part of the review, and there as well, I think the suggestions, findings, recommendations are aligned with the general recommendation on implementing a graded approach on the oversight and authorization of the decommissioning. Maybe something else as well, but we did not review what is going on in particularly with regards to Fukushima and the NRA activities on that.
Understood. And graded approach is referred in many aspects, and that need to be promoted on many aspects now. And person who are not familiar with the nuclear area, the kinds of problems that is not applied with the graded approach could be overlooked. In what area where the graded approach has a benefit? If you could elaborate on that, be appreciated. What is the benefit of graded approach?
General is that you put your eyes and focus on the most significant things. It's not doing less when you apply a graded approach. It's actually doing more because you are focusing on the risk significant areas, which are not that risk significant. We should do less. Currently, not only at the NRA, but in many other regulators as well, we are using same tools and efforts on different areas and different levels of risks, and that's not doing more. It's doing less. So the graded approach is about putting your focus and efforts where it benefits most safety.
I understand. Thank you so much.
はい、他いかがでしょうか。
Any other questions? Kimoto-san from Mainichi Shimbun. My name is Kimoto from the Mainichi Shimbun newspaper. with regard to nuclear security, I'd like to ask a question which is about drones. So there's drones utilized for terrorism attack, but related to Japanese regulation, are there any observations you saw with regard to drones and related regulations in Japan?
Security as such was out of scope of the mission. The only thing we did was the interface between safety and security, so that these two are aligned whenever they are discussed. So we did not go into security issues at all, not particularly with regards to drones or any other such like.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you.
他いかがでしょうか。
Any other questions? Asahi, please. Sorry, Ogawa of Asahi Shimbun. Now, earlier, in regard to the data manipulation of the Hamaoka power plant, I know it is under the jurisdiction of NRA, so I know your position. But it is a general question raised to Mr. Tippana that, well, it's just a general question. The circumventing the regulators is actually the phenomena that is observed the licensees around the world, and deceiving the regulatory authority. Well, Chairman Yamanaka is actually pointed out that that is an act on the part of licensees to detriment the impact of IAEA nuclear safety rule. And what kinds of countermeasures would you imagine that will be effective of deceit of this nature by the licensees?
If I understood your question right, the question is how IAEA safety standards or how regulators and particularly licenses should better be able to detect and address counterfeit, fraudulent, suspected items or data. Is that your question? Well, it's a very good question and valid question. Globally, we are seeing many such events in the global nuclear sector where either fraudulent items or falsified data is included in the services or component structures provided for MPPs. Two things, yes, and this is being discussed in the international forums, in different forums. There will be a workshop under the umbrella of the OECD NEA on CFSI topics, and it has to do with regulations that are in place, regulatory practices that are in place to address CFSI topic, and also probably also what the licenses are expected to do this as well. So it's a shared concern among the industry and regulators, and I have been promoting this topic within the European regulatory forums, and now we have this workshop under the NEA, which I think is very timely and needed for the regulators as well. Then we can pose the right requirements to the licenses so that they are, as they are responsible for safety, they can do what is expected for them to do.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. Well, one point I'd like to ask Mr. Yamanaka that in the earlier discussion, so organizational management, documentation isn't something that Japan is not very good at. So all these approval licensing document where the NRA has publishing such a document, but in regard to organizational management, in fact, how NRA is managing such internal documents, well, making in the public domain is actually one step ahead in the future. But what is your consideration at this moment? Of course, the activity of management itself at NRA, the documentation on many levels have been indicated in this review process. The process itself is working well, but it's not documented well. Therefore, how would that be operated in the future is not very visible. Therefore, we will recommend it to document in better ways. In such management, there's nothing that we hide from the general public's eye. So once we document it, then that will be published as an official NRA document at some point in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All good? So, with that, we'd like to conclude the joint press conference. Thank you very much for your participation. So, the participant will be leaving the room. Thank you very much.